Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to a show on the channel on a Saturday afternoon. And I know everybody's used to us doing these shows where there are art sales. We're going to have an artist on, but today we're not. We have the weekend was open, and fortunately for me, Paperchaser, who is in the Netherlands, was willing and able to join us today. So without further ado, let me bring my new friend Mark into the show. How are you doing, Mark?
Hi, good. Thank you very much. How are you?
I couldn't be better, honestly. It's a wonderful day here. I've got a lot of projects going on right now, but honestly, I'm having more fun than I should be allowed to have with so much work on my plate right now.
Oh, wow, and then all this at this early hour for you.
Exactly. But so Mark, we're here to talk about you. And first up, you've been on the site for, I think even we were talking in the green room, around 19 years now, a little over 19 years.
Yeah,
and
that's crazy.
And I appreciate that. It's funny, when I was getting some of the images you had sent me, I had to do a search in my inbox on your name. I'm like, okay, that's the easiest way to find it. We actually emailed one time back in 2014. And it was you asked me an interesting question, and it was you were asking me about how, if you wanted to delete your gallery, how would that ever happen, or how would you do that? And my reply was something along the lines of, I hope you never want to do that. You've been on the site for a long time. I love your collection, and so and I think you replied back, oh no, I just wanted to know how it might be accomplished if I ever needed to do that. And then what happened?
Exactly. Then I went along and did it.
Accidentally, though. It wasn't intentional.
Accidentally, yes. And actually, this kind of merits a little further explanation.
Well, that's I don't know I don't have that explanation, so I'd love to hear how it happened.
Yeah.
And because there was a lot of times when somebody makes a mistake, accidentally deletes a gallery room, those sorts of things, I get a frantic email saying, can you restore it? I didn't get one from you.
No, the thing is, and that basically is, I think, going to be a little bit of a red thread going through our story this afternoon. I am prone to severe cases of overkill from time to time. I must admit that I am an addict, as we say in the field. But if I spend too much time or too intense time with the hobby or with the friends in the hobby, like visiting comic shows abroad or spending longer amounts of time on the hobby, I tend to get overkill, and I need to shut down for a longer period of time. Mm-hmm. And like you mentioned, the first time I accidentally deleted my entire gallery, because I was working on a very old computer, and as this was in the beginning days of the internet, at least here in Holland, because here in the Netherlands we weren't as quick as maybe you guys in the US, and I was fiddling around and wanted to delete a few things, and basically my computer completely conked out and deleted by accident everything that was on the site.
Oh no.
Or at least I should say, when I came back online, most of my cache memory was just wiped. It was gone. Not only the comic art fans stuff, but other stuff as well. And that basically that was the reason for the accidental deletion of the entire gallery. Later, when like I explained, when I had one of my overkill periods, I just kind of got the feeling that I was looking at my art online too much. And basically, original comic art should be enjoyed and perceived from the real thing. Mm-hmm. And then I deliberately deleted most of the stuff again. And immediately because you told me that I was the one who mailed you, but you actually, which I very much appreciated, you sent me an email because I deleted all my stuff but kept the account going. Mm-hmm. You immediately sent me an email. Is everything all right? Are you okay? Because all the stuff is gone. And that's I replied to you by saying, yeah, I'm going out for a while, but I'll be back. And then I went back, only with a few items or a few pieces, and it's only until recently that I've been starting to post most of my stuff again,
Mm-hmm.
which takes a lot of time, and I'm nowhere near completion yet. But I'm getting there.
Are you going back and rescanning the work, or are you going back to an old hard drive?
No, I'm actually rescanning most of my pieces because I'm a bit of a nerd that way. I want the pieces to look good. I want people who are looking at the art to get a good perception of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I want good, clear scans and not just the old gray pictures, that I used to use, because I don't have a scanner myself. So I have to rely on a friend's scanner to rescan most of the stuff, and it's a lot. It's a lot. It takes a lot of time, as you know, as we all know.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's why a lot of people use their phones these days to.
It's more convenient. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I'm putting in the effort now because, well, basically, like I said, I want people to see it for what it is, even if I think original art should be seen live,
mm-hmm.
Not constantly only online or digital or on your phone. Or even though I think your website is really wonderful, and you just told me that you started in 2003. Do you have any idea how many hours of pleasure and fun and great communication between aficionados you've caused? Because
I do not.
For all these years, well, OAX is a very good example of your success. Basically, it's like a culmination of the website. And
I appreciate that. It's funny. I really didn't take a lot of that into consideration throughout most of CAF's history until we started doing. So the pandemic hit, right? And I started talking with collectors more, and I realized how important CAF was to so many people. And during the pandemic, I think it was very, very revitalized in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
I think the interest went back there because what were we going to do with our free time, right? And CAF just became more and more relevant as time went on. But also just doing the interviews with people and understanding how friendships were formed through CAF and all those things. I never really looked at CAF as a social platform, but in fact, it is, right. And I never thought of it that way.
Oh yeah, it is. This is, I think it's definitely the first, but one amongst only a few maybe that has that function. Mm-hmm. Because now, especially with the Comic Art live stream and everything coming in, but before as well through email or through comments or it's always been possible to let other collectors know what you think of their stuff, and this comes from people who understand. We're all kind of like high functioning sociopaths for a little bit, but these are people in the know. So getting a thumbs up or a positive comment from somebody in the comic art fans community is worth something. It means something.
True. Yeah, it's interesting. I got an email yesterday from somebody who was new to the site and is a fan of original art. I don't know if they're a collector, but they weren't interested, at least in starting a gallery, but they wanted to leave comments on artwork they liked. And, that's something that people are used to doing on Facebook and Twitter and, on Instagram. Yeah. But the thing was, he ran into the limit because, when we had that comment spammer back in January, we put limits on the number of comments a person who's new to the site can post in a day. And they were like, isn't this anti, what your site's all about, leaving comments on art? And I said, well, really, the site's more about creating a gallery, not leaving comments on art. But I appreciated the fact, and I said, I really, I appreciate the idea that you came here just because you wanted to leave comments on art. So it really did make me I haven't changed the programming, but thinking of CAF as a social platform where people who are just fans of the medium who don't want to share their artwork may want to leave comments on stuff. Exactly. I might have to, rethink how I put that
Yeah.
restrictions in place.
Yeah.
So
maybe this is a good time to give a big shout out to Marcus, because he's our uncrowned king of comics, really.
he certainly is.
For sure.
We actually have a crown for him, but if he would ever show up at OAX, we would be able to present it to him. But until we get him there, he does not get that crown. We've 3D printed one for him.
Yeah. Oh, good. But now you've given it away.
Well, he doesn't get to see what's on it yet.
The thing is, and that's really amazing, because we have a 6-hour time difference.
Mm-hmm.
And when I post something like really early in the morning, he's there. When I post something around noon here, he's there. It's amazing. This guy doesn't sleep, right?
Well, he is on the West Coast, so if it's noon there, he might be just about going to bed, or maybe he's on his phone. Who knows?
Yeah.
We have an app coming too, so it's going to make it easier to leave comments and post artwork from anywhere. Pretty soon. So that's going to be interesting when that finally comes out. But Mark, we should we usually start these things out talking about you, so we should probably pivot.
Oh, but I just wanted to commend you a little bit on the site and the years and everything and the community, and it's not something to be taken for granted. It means a lot to collectors and aficionados around the world, literally. So here,
I appreciate that very much. I really do. And the thing is, the reason we're doing a collector interview on a Saturday afternoon is because you are in the Netherlands. There's a 6-hour difference. We don't get to talk to European art collectors too often, and I do hope to do more of that in the future when we can make it's a weekend, so it's not easy for you to break away either. But what it shows us is CAF really is global. I've always talked about that too. Is that half of the traffic on CAF comes from outside of the United States, and that's.
Really?
It does. It's literally 50-50. 50 US and say Canada, and then the other 50% is the rest of the globe. Which is, you can look at there's sites where you can see kind of trends where where the traffic is coming from to other websites, major websites, and you don't see that anywhere. So CAF truly is an international site. And again, it's a rare thing. I host client websites that are outside of the comic arts, and it's true. If it's a US based company, 95% of their traffic is from the US. It's just it just works that way. But we're very fortunate to have a true global audience coming regularly.
That's one of the big perks for the site, of course. It's different flavors. It's different opinions. Which ties in very nicely to your lead-in towards the Netherlands. As I mentioned, when we were in the green room, here we grow up on Franco-Belgian comics, which is a completely different medium, a completely different form. We have one album every 2 years by our favorite creators, not every month you get your fix, but every 2 years. They publish album size. It's a bigger book. It's a more deluxe book that you eventually get, but it takes much longer. But the publishers here tend to take more time and leave more time between releases. So it's not only different characters, like Lucky Luke, Spike and Susie, Tintin, of course, different characters with a different background, not so much superhero stuff, which kind of makes for a different comic book fan, I think, and just that diversity in countries, and because here in Europe, in between the countries, there's a lot of difference between the comics that are released. In Italy, they publish different comics than they do here, or in France, or in Belgium. So that diversity shows very well on comic art fans, because you can see people posting stuff that I've never heard of, even though I'm from Europe. And they might even surprise you guys now and then. So it's a very interesting journey if you take some time and browse through the website. You can discover a lot if you're interested.
Sure.
Yeah.
So tell me a bit about your journey to collecting original comic art then. Were you, I assume you've always been in the Netherlands? Is that where you were born, and is that where you discovered comics?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been in the Netherlands for 55 years, and I kind of, well, like I said, I started reading out, the conventional stuff that we all read here. Like we all start out, Asterix, Tintin, the adventure stuff. Really, that has remained up until this day. The adventure comics, that always remains my primary interest. And at one point, when I think I must have been around 8 or 9 years old, on the radio was a Dutch translation of the Hear play for War of the Worlds, H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds. It was translated into Dutch. It was remade from, I think, one of the original Orson Welles plays. And it was translated into Dutch. And I was listening to this. I remember this even when I was this young. It was broadcast on a New Year's Eve. And I was listening to this, and this completely swept me off my feet. The images just popped into my mind, and everything became very visual from what I was hearing. And that was actually the first remembrance that I have of being swept off my feet by, in this case, science fiction story. And that triggered a lot, because I read the book after this, and then I found a musical version of the story, and I went on from there, basically at one point buying an album which had a sort of art book in the double fold cover, and then they made it visual for me, and that's basically the spark that lit the fuse for me. From that, I went on into discovering Batman, which was basically my first US comic book interest. I was first a very avid Batman collector. And from there on in, and this also requires a little bit of background information. Here in the town where I live, we have only one comic book shop. And the one comic book shop is run by a guy who's been doing that for 40 years. He's never done another job, and his name is Guido, and he was the primary source for inspiration. When I came to him discovering, let's say, Kelly Jones, he told me, well, if you like this, have a look at this. And he showed me Bernie Wrightson's Frankenstein. And that's when, the floodgates opened, because in doing that, not only to me, but to a lot of people here, and since then, he's kept my wallet empty. So because of his unique situation in the store, being the only one, he also started providing a social function with all of these people who were interested, gathering in his store, like it was a bar or a pub. And he started pouring coffee, and these dates became regular. And, well, that's how a very steady clientele and a very solid group started forming, which is still functioning today. So he's basically to blame for everything. Together,
job at the end of the day, right? His shop wouldn't stay in business or be there after 40 years if he wasn't good at turning you on to similar things that you had interest in. And that's wonderful. And
we became the best of friends with a group of, let's say in total, I think maybe 10 people who have been collecting ever since. Each and every one with their own unique take on things and with their own unique interests. But we do a lot of stuff together. We buy art together. We have art evenings. we go to foreign conventions separately, but also as a group. We help each other. If I am able somewhere to find online a very beautiful limited edition of a book, I will automatically buy 2 or 3 if it's possible, because I know that there's more people interested.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody does this. So we are like, we're helping each other. We're working together, not so much in competition, but because we know what the other people like. And we've been doing this for years and years, and it works. And that's basically because of Guido. My path of discovery went very fast and went very wide, because he was literally showing us stuff that we'd never seen. Like I said, Bernie Wrightson, Roy Krenkel, Frank Frazetta, Mark Schultz at one point. And from there on, we just kept moving along, and it still happens to this very day. We have one of our guys in the group, Fons. He's very good at finding young new creators, and he puts them in the group, and we start working with the name, and we start looking online. Can we find something? Can we find books? Can we find art? He's very good at instigating the new names, because he's a real superhero guy, which I am not. Evidently, from my gallery, you can see that most of my stuff is non-superhero, and he has this different take on things and drags me along. He made me discover stuff from Darwin Cook or Chris Samnee, or he just widens the scope a little bit more for me, and that really works. That costs a lot of money, because he opens your eyes to a lot of different things, but it also works vice versa. So being in this group kind of keeps everything going, and it's all Guido's fault, really. I have to blame him. I will take full responsibility for these words.
So Rich Danny's in the chat want to know, what was the name of the shop and what town is it in?
Used to be, we are all in the town of Breda, which is in the south of the Netherlands. I know Rich has connections to the Netherlands. Hij spreekt ook Nederlands. He speaks Dutch, because we've been emailing. We're in the south, and the name of the shop used to be named after one of the Dutch prime comic books. It's called Franka, which is a female name, which is one of the best and longest running series here in the Netherlands. It's a very clear lined comic book. It's very French oriented, but it's beautiful work. And I know a lot of US collectors and artists. Ik kan het goed verstaan. He says he really understands my Dutch. And this used to be the name of the shop. It's called Franka, but now he used to be an employee in that shop, but later he took over, and now the store is called the Strip Specialist. It's like the comic book specialist. Yeah. So that's where we convene, and that's where we venture into adventures together. Yeah. And but
was he turning you on to new books and artists before he owned the shop, or while he was still employed? Yeah.
Yeah, and his own personal taste influenced us all, because he's really into classic American comics. Stuff like Tarzan, like I said, Frank Frazetta stuff, all of the EC stuff. He turned us on to the Fleagle Gang. He turned us on to a lot of things. And, as you probably know, these are hard times for comic book store owners. At a certain point, we kind of surpassed him in acquisitions and because he just wasn't always financially viable enough to go with us, to go to a convention abroad, or to buy the nice, beautiful editions that he wanted. So, we all chip in and we give him presents, because he gave us so much, and now we are able to give something back. That's how we think it works. But these are our hard times for comic book stores here, because we went from 100 stores like 25 years ago to about 21, 25 now nationwide.
Wow.
So it's a real battlefield, and the Netherlands are only small. We're about 150 miles long, so that's really relatively small. If you drive for 1.5 hours, you're almost in Denmark. So the comic book stores, they suffer. The brick and mortar stores, they suffer because of the internet, because of recession, because of pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So he's not always in an easy place. He does a lot of business in magic cards, game cards. So that keeps him afloat. But he has a lot of competition from the internet. And it's not always easy for him. But he manages, still there, still working, still going strong. So we do everything we can to support him. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Now, I don't suppose he was the one that introduced you to original comic art, buying, collecting?
He was.
He was.
Yes,
Okay.
he was. Yeah. He showed me, because he already had some stuff, but he showed me what there is behind the printed page. And I have to mention that I am a screen printer by profession and education. So I know a little bit about the printing process, but I never realized that there would actually be somebody drawing the pages or drawing the pictures before they get photographed and printed. And he opened those doors for us as well. Yeah. I think if I remember well, my very, very first original piece of art was a Mike Mignola page.
That's a good place to start.
Yeah. Better start at the top, right?
Was it a published piece or something?
It was a page from the Iron Wolf book.
Okay.
At the end of the story, there's this huge splash page where everything explodes, and it has a very typical line of text on the top of the page says "Tawa Boomsh," and that was the page. It was my very first art page, which, well, we all make mistakes later. I sold it, but that also taught me to stop doing that. I hardly ever sell anything, but that one is gone. I'm sorry.
Where did you buy that first page? Was it at a show?
Because I was buying art basically before I had an internet connection. Mm-hmm. So it must have been some kind of mail-out list from Graphic Collectibles. Is that possible? That way back?
You were talking about 89, 90, around that time period.
Yeah,
Mitch would have been sending out printed, because he was sending them out via fax, mail. He was one of the early guys that was doing that. So it wouldn't surprise me if it was Mitch.
If I'm not mistaken, I bought that page from Mitch. Yeah, but it's a long time ago. I could be wrong. I know that I did some business with Mitch later on when I had my internet connection. But I do think I was buying from him before then. So Guido also turned us all on to original art, and again widened the scope. Back then, we were ordering comics through Advance Comics, which was the thinner version of previews. But that was about it. That was because supply here in the Netherlands was very limited. You could order comics. If you ordered 100 comics, you'd be lucky if you got 25.
Sure.
So it was a completely different business, and it was very hard and very expensive back then to buy American comics or original art. Even though
89 is still pretty early. You're 21 years old at that point. We're the same age, by the way. I'm 55 as well, so I was born in '68. I guess I wasn't thinking about. Well, I figured because of the Paperchaser 1968, that was my guess. But in 1989, I was not thinking about buying original comic book artwork. I think that, and I was going to shops all the time, but my shop owner wasn't giving me those kind of pointers. I don't even recall seeing original art, at the shop. But that's so you were very fortunate, I think.
Like Rich just mentioned in the comments, it's essential to have somebody who could actually, help you determine what it is that you like, because
Mm-hmm.
that's what he did. He showed us so much, which made it very easy for us to pick and choose. And I very quickly learned that my preferences were more in illustration, more. I love sequential art. I mean, I'm still buying comics, floppies,
Mm-hmm.
nice limited editions, sure. But my preferences are a little bit away from the sequential arts. Now that I mention it, one of the next pieces that I bought, you recently mentioned in your comic update with Chris Snorrick,
Mm-hmm.
was the Joe Quesada Ninja piece, the
Yeah.
big piece with the motorcycle. That's been on my wall for 25 years. And only 6 months ago, I was thinking, it's time that somebody else can enjoy this piece. And I just wanted to try and sell something through one of the major internet comic book art dealers. So I decided to offer that up for sale. And I've recently seen it pop up on Comic Art Fans again, and I had a little bit of contact with the person who bought it, and I asked him to take good care of my baby, because years on the wall, that's something. Yeah, yeah.
Well, was the whole experience a good one for you to sell it that way and see it go after having it on the wall for 25 years?
I'm going to quote Chris again on this. Selling stuff hurts.
Yeah.
I am not a seller. I have sold a few pieces over the last few years, but it's like losing a limb to me. I buy stuff not because I have the urge to buy, but because I like it and because I want that in my collection. So selling stuff, specifically beautiful ink stuff, or no. Even though I made some good money on the Ninjak piece, I was when I bought it, I was the first owner next to Joe and Jimmy. But actually having the idea to sell it, I profited. But afterwards, I was thinking, what the hell did I do? Why?
You regretted it immediately, right?
Yeah, there's so much in my gallery, but still, it's like killing your darlings.
Mm-hmm.
I will never ever do this as a hobby. No. Wow. But sometimes life happens, and you need some money or you need some budget to buy something else. Mm-hmm. And then maybe when people ask, at few times I was susceptible to the offer. Yeah, but not as a habit. No.
Right.
So that's. But yeah, I will if at one point there is no other options but selling, because if ever, I hope it never happens, but if the situation for us gets so dire, I will sell everything. But I hope it never happens.
No. I mean, that's a position no collector wants to be put in.
No,
that's for certain.
I don't think so.
Casper mentioned in the chat. I mean, are you familiar with Mark? I imagine Art of Comics in Amsterdam.
Absolutely, bought a lot from him. Yeah, I like I said, the Netherlands was small, and we fairly early on discovered Mark's original art business, and we made the trip to Amsterdam multiple times. I bought a full range of Barry Smith original Conan comics from him. He had those beautiful Vertigo painted pieces that I bought a George Pratt from him, a Craig Russell, Kelly Jones. He was really in my corner of tastes and interests. Yeah. It's been a long time since I spoke to him, but he's a very nice guy, and we used to run into him on various shows here in the Netherlands. And in France and in the UK, and we travel all over, and so does he. And I hope he's still in business. I haven't spoken to him in a while, but yeah, we have in the past many times. Yeah, we've even been.
He's definitely still in business. see him. I would see him at San Diego. Every time I would go, he would set up.
Great taste in art. Yeah.
He'd always be around Scott Eater.
Exactly. Yeah. We've been fortunate enough to have a huge comic book show in the city for almost 40 years, run by several incarnations of the organization. But all in all, we have one big show every year. And Scott Eater used to visit, and Mark Mokke used to visit. So we even met Scott Eater when he was over here selling original art in the 90s. Yeah.
Scott's been in the hobby for a very, very, very long time too.
Again, beautiful taste in just a little bit away from the mainstream stuff, the early Vertigo stuffs and everything related to that. Beautiful. Yeah, lovely stuff.
Very, very true. So, as far as building your collection, when you were not, did you come to the States? Did you go to some of the larger shows here?
I never, ever visited one of the shows in the States. I've been over to the States a few times, visiting artists, visiting friends, or artists who became friends, but never, ever to a show.
Okay.
I have to say that even here in Europe, I shy away a little bit from the big, now movie-themed, used-to-be comic shows. As I said, I'm not very much of a superhero collector. And the stuff that I look for is, at least here in Europe, is not always to be found at those shows. The most stuff that I buy is directly from artists or online. Because unlike Mark Mokke or some other people here who've been dealing in original comic art, most of it is stuff that many people like, and I just am not always in that corner. I'm really picky, and it's not always easy to find stuff at a show which basically deals around superheroes only. Like shows here is called Comic-Con. There's a show every year called Comic-Con. It's basically, it runs on Marvel comics and superhero comics, and it's just not appealing to me. Again, also because of the overkill factor, but also because it's not my field of interest, really.
Right.
So I've been to the US, but never to a comic book show. No.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, if we go to a show where there's going to be a lot of original art dealers, I would think that not many would have the art that you would be looking for. Albert Moy typically will have, he's a fan of Schultz and Wrightson. I mean, those types of artists, Scott Eater, of course. But once you kind of move away from them, and the dealers tend to gravitate to the stuff that they're most interested in as well. So Mike Berkey, even though he may have a Frazetta every now and again and a Wrightson, 99.9% of his stuff is still going to be, Marvel or DC related and all superhero. And that's, everybody kind of sticks in the I don't know, in the areas that they like. Because at the end of the day, most art dealers are collectors as well. I mean, Mitch started out, Mitch has always kind of been I think he's always been savvy and smart, and he was always kind of wanting to be at that side of the transaction, as a dealer or maybe an agent at different times in his career. But most people who sell artwork started out as collectors. So you're stuck, just like the Donnellys, right? It's a similar sort of thing. You're not going to find too many pieces like that. So I get it. So trips to the US, who in your artist friend group, have you actually traveled to the US to hang out with?
Well, first and foremost, the first person to bring me over to the US was Mark Schultz and John Flesk, because we had been inviting them to our show here multiple times, starting somewhere in 2009, and then a few consecutive years, and then one time with a larger interval, I think. But friendships ensued. And basically at one point they said, well, we've been over to your country so many times now, it's time you came back. And I did for the first time, I think in 2016, and that was a great trip. I mean, I visited Mark. I visited. We were basically in the New York area then, and John came around, and a lot of people that I knew already and spoke to already online came around. Some artists, people in John Flesk's staff I met, and they kind of reciprocated the hospitality to what we did during the shows. And well, like in the case of Mark Schultz, that's an artist that I noticed fairly early on, and to become friends with him and to to interact with him and with John, that was something. I mean, it doesn't very often happen that one of your favorite artists becomes your friend.
Right.
At least that's how I regard the situation. I'm pretty sure they do as well. But that was quite something. Yeah, we did some very nice, interesting things together. They showed me a lot. We went to the N.C. Wyatt Museum. We visited Corey Williamson, which is like comic book royalty to me. We went to New York. They took me to the Society of Illustrators. Man, it was a lot. Yeah. And we've been very good friends for a long time now, and still very much in contact. And it's like I said, it's a privilege, really. Yeah. And
you have his book behind you.
Yeah. Oh, that's a coincidence, but yeah, I've been scanning from it. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So yeah, Schultz has been clearly noticeable from my gallery. His stuff has made a pretty big mark on my collection. No pun intended. With all this stuff and all this work that he does, it's like there's a circle of collectors and fans of his work. We are all in touch together. It's also like a mini community now and again. We meet in conventions, and it's yeah. If at one point, like when I turned 50, Mark designed the birthday invitation that I sent to my friends, and that's these are the cherries on the cake for me as a collector, to be able to say, wow, here's this, me and my wife, we turned 50 at the same time, approximately around the same time. And I just asked him, boy, if you have the time and you're interested, would you consider this? And he said, yeah, sure. What do you want in? So we mentioned various elements like the cat and the music, the guitar is mine. The needle is because my wife is a nurse. The bottle of wine that has the label of the city of Breda. The roses because I wanted it to look a bit like a tattoo, which now it does. Yeah, I mean that's quite something. And I printed these in two versions. The one that we're looking at right now is the main version. But there's also one which I call the artist edition because it has the blue pencil version of this piece on the cover. And inside the card, there are some preliminary sketches. And these went out only to collector friends to make it interesting.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. So that's, these are perks, really. This stuff like this is for a collector, that's quite something.
Well, I put a link in the chat for everybody because you have 63 pieces by Mark in your CAF gallery. So
at this moment, yeah.
At this moment, right. I'm sure that's not all the pieces that you have collected.
No. Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah.
We as collectors are definitely patrons of the art. When we can buy direct from the artists and have relationships with them beyond just our our fan of the being a fan of their work, I think is you called it a perk. It's one of the things that makes our hobby unique. In that way, is that we can have those kind of friendships with the creators, or at least they get to acknowledge you. When you pick up something directly from them, which is you don't get that satisfaction buying a slabbed comic book or a statue or any of those things. Yeah, it's very different. But
I think everybody or anybody who's ever met Mark will say that there is no nicer guy in the industry. I mean, he's a very laid back person. He's in his own way. He's he'll think before he says something, but when he says something, it's most of the time it makes sense, and he's very approachable and very friendly. And I mean, there's a lot of friendly people in the comics artist communities, but you can really tell that he took a lot away from his liaison with Al Williamson. He's the professional, the person who will listen to everybody, who will talk to everybody, very approachable, and that makes it easy to interact with somebody like him. And the same can be said for John. John Flesk is, he's a businessman, and he has a lot of stuff going. But he's first and foremost, he's a human being, like interacting with other human beings comes natural. And communication, of course, is key. Yeah.
Very, very true. Now, well, you know what? Why don't we look at some artwork? I think that'll lead us into some areas of conversation we haven't gotten to yet. Let's see. I'll go in the order that you sent them to me, but we can move a little bit. You mentioned, Wrightson earlier as someone who your book dealer turned you on to early on.
Absolutely. I have to say, despite the love that I have for Mark Schultz's work or other people in my gallery, Bernie Wrightson remains my first real comic book crush. His work, harking back to the days of old illustrators like Franklin Booth and all the names that everybody knows, his stuff has a very special impact on me. This piece that we're looking at, we had Bernie Wrightson over to the show for one day only. So I got to interact with him for only one day, and he was at the show floor. And, the name Bernie Wrightson here is known, but not as known as, let's say, the name Jim Lee. So it wasn't very busy at the booth that he was at. And I just went up to him and asked if he had time to do a show commission for me. And this was in 1997. So that's a long time ago. And he charged me an amount of money, which I paid immediately, while other people were punching me in the shoulder saying, "Are you sick? Are you normal? Are you paying this much money for a drawing?" Which I'm to this day very happy I did. And it wasn't much, believe me. I think it was about $150 or something. So he started drawing, and he obviously started with a blank sheet of paper, and he started drawing the outline of the picture that you're seeing. Only the outline, which to me, upside down, looked like a fried egg. And I was thinking, what's he doing? What is this turning into? And as soon as he had the outline complete, he started filling in the surfaces and the areas. And then it turned into this. And that was amazing, because me watching him work upside down, because I was at the other side of the table, that was amazing. And he did one commission at that show. And as far as I know, that was the only time he was in the Netherlands. He was in the Netherlands at the time of the studio book in the 70s or in the beginning of the 80s with Kaluta Jones Smith wasn't here, I think, but that was just before my time. So meeting him, being able to spend almost an entire day with him at the booth, and then this to top it off, well, that was, well, another dream come true. Yeah.
Well, that's yeah. You know, the thing is, $150 in '97
Yeah.
was a lot of money,
It
but
was. Yeah.
I mean, because I remember seeing Bernie, you know, literally probably one of my first San Diego's, which might have been 2003, around there. And I remember not getting anything from him because I thought his sketch prices were high. You know, because back in '97, 150 would have been high, but because everybody else was probably around 50 US or something, right? But I totally regret that because I've been looking for a Wrightson. Well, actually, I did add a Wrightson piece to my collection. I forgot about that. You know, probably a convention sketch from the late '70s. But yeah, there was a long period of time where I wanted one.
Yeah.
So that's that. So you were the smart one. So your friends who were elbowing you, saying, you know, you're making a mistake. They probably regret that.
Yeah, you know, but the thing is, again, we go back to what we talked about earlier. The person who actually arranged for Bernie Wrightson to come over was a friend of Guido's. So again, for us, not only for me, but other people got sketches from him, like you said, convention sketches. Again, he opened the door. He contacted this guy and said, I have this small group of 5 or 6 people here. Would it be possible to, to arrange something small or big, whatever is possible? But again, he opened the door. Yeah. So, and no, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I was gonna show this other image that you sent me that was done by Bernie as well.
Yeah. This one I bought from Albert Moy back in the day, in my early days of internet. And well, I think somebody commented earlier on this piece that there were a lot of Frankenstein head sketches around. Some of them are good, some of them are not so good. But this thing is large. This is like, I have to estimate it, but I think it's an easy 25 by 14. It's huge. It's huge. And I framed it. I put it on my wall. And this is the one piece that if my house ever crashes or falls apart, this is the one that I will clutch and run out the house with. A Frankenstein by Wrightson. And I think, in my humble opinion, this is a good one. It's I think it's done mostly in markers. It's pretty crude. It doesn't have the fine lines that Wrightson is known for. But all in all, the hair and the fur from the coat and the typical Wrightson Frankenstein nose, it still blows me away. And this is on my wall for an easy 30 years already. Yeah, this is something. This is the one piece I would take from my wall. Absolutely. Yeah, because like I said, the Wrightson stuff I don't have as much, but it was really my first comic book interest, and that opened so much. I knew Bernie Wrightson from Batman the Cult, but I never realized there was such a big career behind this name until I was shown. Yeah.
No, and it's beautiful, and the fact that it's that scale as well. I'm sure every time Albert comes across this thing, he probably regrets having sold it, because I mean, I can't say that I've seen a Wrightson piece at that size before. I mean, typically, if he had done something at a show, it would have been maybe 11 by 14 is the largest. Yeah. But and there's a lot of those, right? There's plenty of Swamp Things. There's a fair number of Frankenstein.
Not all of them are great. We have to be honest. Some of them are fairly quick or not as elaborate. But for me, as soon as I saw this pop up, I immediately contacted Albert Moy and said, I want this. And I don't think I will ever sell this, unless again, you have to. But no, this is definitely the one. Yeah.
Well, an early piece, and if you've had it for about 30-ish years, I mean, that's one of the earliest pieces.
Wrightson used to sign his work with Bernie, with only an I and without the E. But on the certificate that came with this, he wrote his name already with an E. So it must have been done somewhere around the 90s. When he was here, I think I forgot to ask him, or maybe I did, but never. I don't remember the answer. But I think it's made somewhere around 89, 90, judging by the certificate which came with the piece, because he signed that in his full name. Yeah.
Well, the next piece is a little bit more modern. It's piece by Chris Pacello and Richard Friend from Steampunk.
Yeah, this is first of all, I like Chris Pacello's work very much. He has this beautiful quirky style, which is sometimes very cartoony, sometimes very quick, and sometimes very spur of the moment, I think. But the stuff in the steampunk book is so intricate and so elaborate. And this page I sent to you because of the way you read this page takes you from the top right corner all the way down to the bottom left corner and tells you a story. If I ever like sequential art, then please make all my books like this, because the level of intricacy and the level of details in these pages, I'm lucky to own a few more. This is layout on a higher level. I've listened to Richard Friend, who does his own streams now and again, who's the inker for these pages, and he even said at certain times he couldn't make out what was what anymore because of the level of detail in the pencils. And a big kudos to Richard Friend for doing all these pages. And this, for me, this is work that screams artist edition. If you look at these pages up close, you can actually see all the little white dots and all the little nuances that Richard Friend put into the work is incredible. I've never seen another comic book like Steampunk. Now, I know that a lot of people don't think much of it because it's very hard to read. It's not an easy read. But from an artistic point of view, I think this is comic book making 2.0. I love this stuff. The more quirky and the more full it gets, the better I like it. Yeah.
Well, that definitely describes Chris's style, but I've always appreciated his work too. I never read Steampunk, and I've always wanted to. But yeah, you've got it like at least a dozen pages in your CAF from that series. So
yeah, basically this is stuff that if I ever see something pop up, even if I don't have the money right away, I'll send an email to the seller to ask if he can put it aside for me. I'm gonna, at least if I like the page, of course, because there's some pages in there which are a little bit.
You don't want to own every page from a book, but I mean, come on, but the thing is, there's plenty of that artwork out there, right? I don't know how long that book ran. It over a dozen.
It was from the top of my head, I think 14 issues combined into 2 trade paperbacks only, and it never was re-released. Not in a hardcover, never in an artist edition or anything. It was just abandoned. And Chris keeps saying in interviews he's going to finish it, and Richard says that they will finish it, but let's hope. I think it's beautiful stuff.
Well, then I have to get started with it before they finish it. That's the thing.
Yeah. It's
Uh,
it's it's a hard read. I've read both books, the trade paperbacks. It's a hard read, but there's very intricate and very good story there by Joe Kelly, um, which deals with time travel, which deals with multiple planes of existence. It has a great villain by the name of Faust, who's playing a bone flute. That's it's If you can come up with this, you're a big one. I think so.
all right.
Yeah.
Well, you're convincing me. I'm gonna have to get it so I can read it. Let's see here. What do we got next?
Gary Gianni.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and I remember, I forget who was mentioning Gianni in the chat, I think earlier, maybe it was Marcus, but yeah, Gianni's an amazing artist. This is a fun piece. Is it a published piece? I didn't.
I can remember, if I look at the bottom of the piece, I think it was somewhere in 02 or 01.
Yeah.
And I can remember emailing with Gary, who later became one of our guests here in Breda as well, and asking him to buy a piece because I had nothing from him. I was reading his comics. I was following his work, but I had no originals. Now, Gary is known for not selling much of his work. And he said, well, I have this and I have this, but you'll probably not be interested. And he showed me some preliminary work, which later appeared in the Conan books for Wandering Star. And then he showed me this piece, which was going to function as a title page illustration in the Flesk publication for 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. But he didn't tell me. So he sold me this piece, which, he dedicated to my name and everything, which I loved because it suits his style, the old diving costume and the ship and everything is like, there's even a Nautilus over the diver's head. I just bought the piece for what it was. And then the book appeared, and I find this illustration to be the title page illustration. So that was a surprise. I mean, he never mentioned it. And having met Gary a few times, he's the gentleman artist. He's like, he's from Chicago, and he speaks in this, which I think is a typical Chicago accent. When he was over here, he did some sketches for people, and they never picked up their sketches. And then at one point he said, Mark, could you get me a drink? And I got Gary a drink, and he said, thanks for the drink, and have these because people didn't pick them up. You take these. If you like them, take them because, it's not much, but, you can have them. And he's always like a little bit like self-deprecating. He sounds like he doesn't like his own work, but I think his work is beautiful. And again, a very humble and well-spoken guy. And I've been following his career ever since. It's his work. Yeah, it has that old feel, like J.C. Cole.
Yes.
Franklin Booth. He's like, he was born literally 100 years too late. He should have. He actually keeps the flame alive for people like Cole and Rockwell. He's one of the people who will carry on the torch, so to say, to also keep the old work under the attention of young people. It's very important. And this piece, I think this was my first Gary Gianni piece. And to see it later published in the book, well, that's, again, a perk.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, typically the artist is going to let you know what their intention is for a piece like that. I mean, maybe they'd sell it for more.
Yeah.
But
never
a pleasant surprise. Well, maybe at the point when he sold it to you, he didn't know how they were going to use it, right? But
that's possible. Because I think the book appeared in 2003 or 2004.
Mm-hmm.
He published it first under his own small printing company. It was called Hieronymus Press.
Yeah.
He made a paper version, and then later the book appeared in hardcover. Yeah.
All right. Well, next piece, we've got a different artist here, and I did put a link in the chat. You've got a lot of pieces by Gary in your CAF, and again, it's probably only a part of them, but yeah, I think you've got like 18 or something. So I'm putting in links every time we talk about a different artist, so people can see other pieces.
I can't see the chat, so I cannot.
I did forget to tell you that. On the right-hand side of the window, there's private chat or comments. Go ahead and click comments. You'll see the comments that are coming in. So
there we go.
I don't highlight them all. When unless there's a question or a comment that's tied to what we're talking about. But yeah, we've got 45 people watching right now, Mark.
Oh, wow.
I'm getting nervous now.
No, you won't get nervous.
Good.
Of course, the first name I see is Marcus.
Yes, Marcus is he is always in the chat, and interestingly enough, the next artist that we're going to look at is Kelly Jones. And Marcus had an issue with Kelly. He had an outstanding commission for a long time, but he did finally get it. He did finally get the commission.
I think I read Marcus's comments on certain people's Kelly Jones stuff, saying I'm still waiting for my commission. Yep. But it's good to hear that he finally got it. I'm happy for him. It's
tough sometimes, right? I mean, commissions can be difficult, and some artists you never hear back from. But at least there was a happy ending. Albeit a lot longer than he was probably hoping. But here's Kelly Jones.
It all turned out well. That's good. That's good to hear. Well, Kelly Jones is, for our circle of collectors, one of the names that we would like to bring over. And actually, earlier this year, I've extended an invitation for this year's version of the show, and he's actually considering it. So, but last year, I met Kelly in a signing session in Belgium. That was the first time and ever time that I met him. Batman Red Rain was my introduction to both Kelly's work and simultaneously to Bernie Wrightson's work, because at that point, like I said, a certain comic book dealer pointed out that Kelly Jones was heavily influenced by this guy called Bernie Wrightson. So the link is there. And Batman Dracula Red Rain was visually, the darkness of it, the grittiness of it, that was my first introduction to Kelly's work. And immediately after, I found his Deadman work, which was so completely different from what Neil Adams did or what Marshall Rogers did. What he actually did was turn Deadman into a dead man. Turn Deadman into a emaciated corpse, which was animated. And that's why I sent you this piece, because I have some Batman pieces which I think are very nice as well. But what he did with Deadman, turning that into what it is that you see here or in the book, that was, for me, a stroke of brilliance. He was, I think, the first one who actually made Deadman look like a dead man. And his visual style with the heavy blacks and the shadows and it's like the chiaroscuro elements in his work have been with me ever since. So very much linked to the work of Bernie Wrightson, very much linked to Marshall Rogers a little bit, Michael Golden maybe influences for him. But the Deadman book took it one step further for me from the Batman book. The Red Rain book was very atmospheric. The inking by Malcolm Jones III was beautiful. But the Deadman work, Kelly inked himself. So, yeah, that luckily we have a few beautiful gallery editions from his Batman work and his Deadman work, because, like you say, original work by Kelly Jones is hard to come by. I was lucky last year because me and my friend Fons, we knew about Kelly coming to Belgium only a week before it happened. but we were able to go there. We were even able to commission him for a few pieces. So in that regard, sorry, Marcus, but we were just very lucky. And I commissioned him for a Red Rain Batman piece, which is also in my gallery. And we're hoping that Mr. Jones is going to be with us at the end of this year for the show. That would be a very good addition in the long line of big names. Yeah, I'd love to meet again, and well, see what would come of it. Would be nice.
Yeah, he had that very successful Kickstarter with Matt Wagner for the Dracula book too.
Very much looking forward to that.
Yeah.
I think that's a dream project for them both.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. They. I think they were very excited to be able to be working on that.
Yeah.
Now, this is an artist that I know as well, Justin Gerard, and I don't think a lot of comic art collectors are familiar with Justin's work, but I mean, he's a phenomenal traditional painter.
Yeah.
And his wife is equally talented, or maybe even more so. But if that could be said. But I've always loved Justin's work. I own a few pieces myself.
Yeah, I think he makes phenomenal work. A few years ago, we only met online. We only communicated and dealt with each other online. And I pretty basically told him the story of what got me into comics, and that was War of the Worlds. And I asked him if it was possible to do a commission piece or something. And he went one step further by saying, well, we're going to do a series. He started sketching immediately, and he started laying out some scenes and some anecdotes from the story, which he really delved into. And he did some brilliant, beautiful pencil sketches, which haven't been worked out yet because he got very busy with several assignments. So we need to pick this up again. But this was the first piece in the series. And what I like the most about this piece is the organic feel of the tripod, because the depictions of the tripods for War of the Worlds usually are mechanical. And this one has a very nice hybrid form of steampunk organic combined with machinations, with machines. And the sheer size of the walker and towering over these houses, that's a pretty iconic image for War of the Worlds, of course, seeing the Victorian streets in shadow with the tripods looming over them. I think this was brilliantly executed. The detail of the trashed household in the lower right corner. Yeah, the people looking up in fear at the machine. Yeah, the atmosphere of the piece, I think, is very spot on. And like I said, I hope we get the chance to elaborate a little bit, because he pointed out one idea which was so visually compelling. That's him. He sent me this picture from the Spectrum show at one point, saying hi, literally. He suggested doing a piece where one of the walkers has fallen, has been shot down, and a little kid is poking the machine with his finger, like this, because that's what little children do. And that really appealed to me, because he was absolutely right about the inclination for small children to poke their finger in stuff that they don't know. And that's one of the sketches I hope we will be able to realize in the near future, if all serves well, I hope. Talented artist, really brilliant, as well with paint as with a pencil.
Oh, without question. He's been on the cover of that art book that we do, Infected by Art, both he and his wife, Annie. So, I love their work. And, such nice people. And I do own a Gandalf sketch as well. So.
Oh, wow, really?
I do. It's different than yours. Yeah, but it's on toned paper, probably done right around the same time. I bought it 10 years ago when I was at IX, the IX show. Yeah.
Oh, but is it in the same cartoony vein as the piece that I have?
Yeah, very similar. I mean, here I'll even show it to you because I was just looking at it.
Oh, wow.
So that one's mine.
Wow. Yes, I know this piece. I've seen it.
Yep. And then here was yours.
Actually, so. I think when I saw this piece, that was the reason for me to contact Justin and ask him for a Gandalf commission in oil.
Oh, good.
And he told me, well, I need to tread carefully here, he said, because I've recently done a Gandalf, and I don't want the original owner for the first piece to think that I will do this, as a series of for everybody, because he wanted your piece obviously to look unique. So that why I think he changed the image a little bit around and came up with mine later. So that was you he was mentioning.
That would be, yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, I love illustration art too. I mean, that's why, one wall of illustration art, another one of more comic book related artwork. But yeah, IX is just a fantastic show to go to. If you ever make it to a show in the US, the IX art show it's in October every year, is a really it's really the best one in the US. I mean, we're going to start leaning more and more. We had a few illustrators at OAX, and I think as time goes by, we're going to be introducing more painters and illustrators to OA collectors as well, just because there's so much good art out there, and we can't just stay focused on men and women in tights and those creators, because there's so many more things we'd be spending our money on. Yeah.
But I'm not the person to judge or to think that one thing is better than the other. It's a matter of personal preference.
Yeah.
But this sounds like a show that I would probably visit when I'm over. Yeah, much more so than let's say San Diego or whatever.
Yeah, I would encourage you. Yeah, it is the one show where because they have I think it's 120 primary artists that are there, and they're all juried in, and then they still have to pay for their table. So it's a show that the artists really want to be at. And then they have and then even on Friday and Saturday they have a second venue where it's kind of open, first come first serve. But a lot of talented artists are there because they don't get juried in. They do the other show, and it's back at the primary hotel. So it's a very well run.
Sounds good. Yeah. Sounds good. Sounds like something I want to be in.
Yes. Well, let's see here. What do we got now? Now we spoke about Mignola earlier, so we had to have at least one piece here in your set.
Yeah, that's another story. We had Mike and Christine over in 2010. I had some help from John contacting Mike to ask him if he would be that year's show star. And it took a lot of emailing and a lot of negotiating and a lot of back and forth, but he was willing to come, or they were willing to come. Both of them were here. And when you have somebody over in a small country like this, with the name that he has and the implication that brings, you're going to need somebody to actually take care of these two people to make sure that everything goes right. Because a star of this size at that point in time, after the first two movies, we'd never had over. And so I kind of agreed with them that I would be their personal liaison for a week, because they'd be over for a week. We had several functions that we needed to go to, press occasions, interviews, because as soon as the media got hold of the news that Mignola was coming, they went crazy. Everything went crazy here. And I got so many emails with requests, with questions, with things which would be possible if Mr. Mignola could do this, if Mr. Mignola could do that. So I immediately started functioning as a sort of agent the minute they stepped down from the plane. And we decided not to house them in Breda itself. We put them up in a hotel, beautiful hotel in Amsterdam, to keep them away a little bit. And so that basically, the minute they stepped down from the plane, we realized that these are just two human beings. Sure, this is Mike and Christine Mignola, but still, these are people. And we need to take care of these people to make sure that everything goes right. And so I traveled all around the country with them in that week. We went to Belgium to the Brussels Museum of Comic Book Art, because that's where they were going to do the release for the first Dutch version of Hellboy. We made a special print. We made a special book for the show because of their coming. And we were talking about the contents of the book. And at one point, I suggested, would it be possible to do a special new Hellboy cover for the book, which is the cover of the book, as it is now, is called Hellboy in Holland, because he's standing in front of a typical old Dutch windmill. And he said, yeah, sure, I would love to do that. So we compiled a book with 4 short stories, which were published before, and he drew this cover. The only demand he had was that Dave Stewart would color it. And we had to pay Dave Stewart for the work. So no problem. The publisher who in the end published the book said, no problem, we will pay for this. And we ended up with the book. Now, as a fan, being relatively close to them that week, when I drove them back to the airport, I said, well, let's stay in touch. And if it's possible, I'd like to buy the original from you. And he said, well, I don't know. I like it myself. And I don't know yet if I want to sell it. And he said, it's not like a percolator. I mean, it's something that if I like it myself, I won't sell it. I said, sure, think about it. No worries. Thanks for being here. And I sent them off. And a week later, without me even giving it another thought, there's this big envelope that falls into my letterbox. And I opened it, and the original was in. And it said, below the picture, it says, thanks, Mark, for a great week, Christine and Mike Mignola. So he kind of fooled me, because I think they were already intending, because this is such a specific piece for Holland, they already intended to give me the piece, I think. They had already decided upon that, but just didn't want to tell me. So that was a big surprise. Yeah. And then we printed a lot of books, which kind of became a collector item, because it's a specific book for the show. This is the book specifically made for the show.
I saw it on the on that one photograph. It was on the pillar or post.
And the cover is unique, of course, in the Hellboy universe. And that was quite a story. Very, we've kept in touch. Of course, not as regular as with other artists, because Mike's busy. But we ran into them again later. Me and Fons went to a show in London where they were guests, and which was quite a nice anecdote. We walked past their booth, and they saw us, and they jumped off from the table and they started hugging me. And hey, how are you? It's been a long time, and everything good? Yeah, everything's good. And then security people, they grabbed me and said, look, we don't know what you think, but a lot of people want this. Stop doing this. Stop hugging the artist, please.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's
great.
Well, here another.
By the way, what part of the negotiations when he came over to the Breda show was that he would not do sketches, unless maybe if he felt right and if he had a good time there, he would do a few. He did 70 in 2 days.
So he was having a good time, clearly.
I think he had a good time.
We probably like the room you set him up with in Amsterdam, and that's his way of saying thank you. I mean, and that's true. Typically, when he's at a show, he'll do pre-done stuff, and bring a fair number. He'll bring some published things, and then do several sketches as well. But yeah, he doesn't sketch a lot at U.S. shows anymore.
No, I can imagine. I mean, it's for him, the crowd at the table, the pulling on all sides. Everybody wants something from him, I think. And that's why we thought it was a good idea to have somebody keep them away from all this stuff. And we did, and we succeeded. It was a very memorable time.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Now, another artist, one that I also appreciate a great deal. I think a lot of collectors do. P. Craig Russell. So this is a nice piece. I
think P. Craig Russell is a very good example of an artist whose style borders on fine art. His ink work and his lines are so delicate. He does some beautiful stuff in pencil, which looks a little bit on the edge between cartoony and very detailed stuff. But what he can do with an ink line is exceptional. When you look at the hair of the dream character here, or the Arabian Nights, splitting of the hair, the brush strokes there is amazing. When you see the piece in person, you will appreciate it even more. This piece was a tier in a Kickstarter. They were selling, I think, 5 slots for original commissions. And I've been a fan of Edgar Allan Poe's work for a long time, reading everything. And of course, one of his better known stories is A Dream Within a Dream. And I related this to the name of the Sandman character, Dream. So I suggested, when I hit the Buy It Now button on the Kickstarter, I suggested if he'd be interested to make a combination between the text by Edgar Allan Poe and the Sandman character. All that we see or seem is but a dream within a dream. And he immediately took to it. He even made some more references in the piece. There's the raven sitting on the bust of Pallas Athena in the upper right corner. And of course, Jeremy the Raven is a character in the Sandman book. I asked him to do the piece in a sort of Art Nouveau library. So therefore, there's the flying books. And he even did a version of the portway, the gateway to hell, to which Dream again holds the key. So within this illustration, there's a number of factors that combine perfectly together. And of course, the ink work is spectacular. When you look at the fine lined work in the curtain and in the hair and in the robe, it's all typically P. Craig Russell. And this year, again, they did a Kickstarter that features a commission slot. And again, I decided to do this and ask if it would be possible to make a second piece of Dream's elder sister, Death, combined with another line of Poe's text. And it's going to be interconnected through probably the curtain to become a diptych, a 2-piece illustration. And then in the future, I hope to add even a third character, but he doesn't know this yet. I haven't asked him.
Yeah, you have to wait for his next Kickstarter then.
Exactly. Yeah, or maybe contact him through Wayne Allen Harold, who is
Yep. Who
does
represents.
a very good job in communicating.
Mm-hmm.
Um, to see if there might be a chance for the third D in the family.
Well, once you get two, you might as well.
Yeah.
He should complete it.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to wait for another Kickstarter for that. I don't think.
Well, let's hope. We always need something to chase after, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we have another piece by Mr. Russell as well. And again, he's well collected in your CAF.
He only did the very fine line pencils for this piece, and I asked another good friend, Barry Kitson, because he's a very, very beautiful ink line as well, to ink the very fine line piece that P. Craig Russell had done. I owned a pencil sketch, and Barry Kitson was graceful enough to add in all the squiggly bits, as he calls them. His ink line is beautiful, and the combination here. The idea for this came through a page which is also in my gallery for another War of the Worlds piece that they did a story in the All New Invaders comic, which had Craig Russell's layouts and Barry's pencils and inks. And I bought this issue, and I loved the artwork. And then I thought, well, I'm in good contact with Barry, so I can ask him if he wants to ink or blue line and ink a Craig Russell sketch. And he did. And that turned out this beautiful combination piece. Yeah, beautiful ink line.
Yeah, no, I've always been a fan of Russell's stuff. I mean, he was in the New York scene during during the heyday of the studio, of course, and was a bit influenced by all of those gentlemen. But yeah, his artwork has always been pretty unique. He was one of the guys, back in the 70s who'd have his artwork made into posters, right? So you'd see a lot of that when you go to comic shops. Yeah, I've always his stuff stood out.
Pretty much like Barry Smith did in.
Yeah, quite true.
Yeah, beautiful stuff. Beautiful stuff. Whatever he takes on turns into patches of beauty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, this is a deviation because I think this is our first, real character in tights, right?
Yeah.
So we have Tim Sale, right. Daredevil.
Yeah, Tim Sale is a master. I have to say, unfortunately, was a master of ink wash. I don't quite remember what the first stuff was that I saw of Tim Sale. I think it was Grendel, Matt Wagner's Grendel. He did some stuff for that, starting out Billy, which is now being re-released, recolored. His ink style was just appealed to me, and his very typical faces, especially in a piece like this one. When you look at the mouth, it has a very specific approach to the lips and to the faces. That's typical for Tim Sale's work. We've been busy a few times to get Tim to come over to the Netherlands. Unfortunately, that never happened, but I was lucky enough to meet him on 2 occasions, once in Belgium and once in Madrid for shows. And what he could do with a brush, a bit of water, and a bit of ink in 15 minutes was amazing. His Batman work is amazing. I think he's really redefined the character by his style, and the whole Long Halloween storyline has become part of DC's canon. So it's really quality work. And again, whatever I can get my hands on, I will buy. There's like a number of 15 to 20 artists that I really follow, and whatever I can get from them, I will try at least. Yeah. It's not like I want something from everybody. It's more like I want more from these 15.
So that's a different mindset than for me, it's like I'm not a one and done guy, but I want that one good example. But once for you, quantity is, that's just a part of it. You want to be able to appreciate them. I'm not even quite sure what the right word would be, but I mean, you can surround yourself with like the Schultz work or Tim's, because you have several pieces by Tim as well, and it just gives you a different appreciation to be able to have all that. But so you're letting everybody know who we have to compete against. If you're a Tim Sale fan, Paperchaser, Mark is going to be on the lookout too.
I wish I had money to throw around, which unfortunately I don't. But I will give you a run for your money. Yeah, I will try. The thing is, I will take this even one step further for you. I think I own about 10,000 comics, and I never read them. I don't read them. Well, a few exceptions. I read The Goon. I read anything Hellboy because I'm a huge Hellboy fan. But for me, the fun is in the artwork. So I will appreciate a comic book mostly for the artwork, then put it away. And then, like you said, that's a very different, wayward way of collecting, I think, because most of the people that I interact with, they go for volume. They want something by everybody, and that's exactly what I don't want. Which at one point makes it like simple and very clear. Okay, this is the field that I am working. But also, it gives you a problem because having a number of pieces already, you want to find that piece with a character or an aspect that you don't have yet. Like in Schultz's work, you can only have so many Hannas and you can only have so many Jacks. So you start looking for dinosaurs, monkeys, I don't know, backgrounds, beautifully technically great work. So I start looking for, everybody wants the female pieces up front, preferably partial nudity even. I will buy the T-Rex or the car that I like is well designed, or whatever appeals to me. I will buy. He says, like Mark says, you're always the guy who buys the strange things that nobody else wants. You want to keep it that way.
That's competition for those pieces.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right. Well, here's an artist. I don't think we talked too much about Bo Hampton, but here is on the channel. But I've always admired his work. He's a great painter, and
very, very another very approachable guy. We have a very nice rapport, very good contact together. This piece I commissioned from him in 2003, I think. And this is actually a panel from the book, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, that he did, the version of the book that he did. Small panel. And I asked him, would you blow up the moon and, basically recreate the panel? And he did. And this was, I think, a few months before the second printing of the book was going to take place. And when I commissioned him, he finished the piece. He sent me a picture and asked me the question, would you mind if I use your piece as the book's new cover? And that's what happened. In the second printing is a trade paperback version of the book. He used this commissioned piece as its cover. And for me, this is, I think for as far as Washington Irving's story goes, this is the iconic image. The headless horseman, the horse, the moon, the hollow, which the horse is standing in. So that's it. And it's a very striking image. And I've been following both Hampton's work for years. Beautiful, basically, I don't want to say old school style, but that's how I call it for myself. It's not, but it's a very typical style. It's completely different from Bo Hampton's style, which I appreciate very much as well. But it has its own stamp on it. Yeah. Still in good contact after all these years. Yeah.
Well, you definitely lucked out having it turned into a cover. That's everybody's, every collector's dream. Buy a commission or commission an artist and then have that become a a published piece, especially a cover.
And mostly it's the other way around. You actually buy a piece because it's the cover. And this time I was lucky. And of course, my reply was, yes, please. I mean, it's your work. Who am I? I don't hold the publishing rights or anything. I'm just a client.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, next up, a piece by Mike Hoffman. And
Mike Hoffman. Yeah.
We don't talk about him too much either.
You know, Mike Hoffman, I think, never gets the credit that I think he deserves. Of course, we all know him to be very close to the Frazetta style, or at least in his beginning years. But as his work progressed, I think he went a little bit further into his own style. Of course, there is all the influences and there is all the characterizations in the personas and in the forms and in the subject matter. But he is such a wonderful penciler and he can do with composition is I think deserving of much more credit than he gets. I think it's always easy to say, well, he's the Frazetta clone. Basically, when you look at it and when you really look at a lot of work in the corner that I'm interested in, basically everybody will show off their Frazetta influences because Frazetta is basically everywhere. His influence was and is so great. If you want to find it somewhere, you always will. And Hoffman's work, besides being influenced by whomever, I think it just stands in itself as being beautiful. But that's in my view. And he was one of the first people that I got into contact with when I got online. One of the first pieces of art that I bought was from him. And that was also in early 2000s, I think. So
was that like through eBay?
Sorry?
Was that through eBay? I think Mike was on eBay a lot.
Probably. He back then he was a little less prolific than he is now because he does a lot of business on eBay. But in the beginning, I think we established contact through eBay. Yeah, and then from there on, we did a number of commissions. I bought a lot of pieces from him as well. I really went in deep with his work as well. I could go for weeks posting his stuff. I won't post everything, but the pieces that I like the most, I will put up. But I have a lot. Yeah, again, not being able up until now to buy a Frazetta. This is very good composition for that. I can quote Bill Stout on this, who said at one point I wasn't able to buy a Frazetta, so I painted my own.
Yeah, I have yet to own a Frazetta as well. As much as I've always wanted one, I'll take a 2-inch tall, caveman with a spear,
whatever,
or a beautiful woman. But I can't even afford those because the thing is that they're always in demand, right?
A lizard, I don't care what, but just something. Yeah.
Very true. No, well, Mike is a talented guy. He does have that, that reputation of being the Frazetta clone or whatnot. But I agree with you. You have to have a level of talent to be able to do the work that he always was.
In the music industry, if people who copied other people were canceled, then nobody would be making music anymore. So. I mean, everybody influences somebody else, and everybody takes a little bit away from so many other people in art or in music. I mean, but still, in his own right, I think he's a very, very good artist. Yeah.
Now, this next artwork, you did mention the artist earlier, Eric Powell.
Yeah.
And who doesn't love his work, right? I mean, wow. He's a phenomenal illustrator.
I think he's the Jack Davis and Bernie Wrightson love child of our age. His combination of cartoony, grim starkness is unique. And again, in doesn't matter what medium you see, he does it all in pencils, in paint, really. Eric Powell is a very, very great talent, I think, in our current day. His work is, he's been in the business for, I don't know, now must be up to 25 years, starting with the Goon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's 25 years because they just released a 25-year pin on Patreon. Yeah, for Albatross Funny Books. 25 years of the Goon. So for today's market, wow. Again, somebody who was influenced by many artists from the past and was born maybe 50 years too late. He's amazing. Yeah.
I agree. I love, never owned anything by Eric, but have always been a fan of his work. And you got this, when you were at a show, was he in Europe?
He was this piece. There was a gaming show here in Holland for the first time, and they decided to make the combination with comics. And my son is an avid game player, and he went to this game show, and he calls me from the show floor, and because I was at work at that time, and he says, "Dad, do you know who's sketching here?" And I said, "No." He says, "It's Eric Powell." So I said to him on the phone, "Walk over to the gentleman's booth, kindly ask him if he has time to do a commission." And it appeared that there was nobody at the booth. There was nobody there because it was a game crowd.
Right.
And my son asked, "What's the price?" and this and that. And I was on the phone giving my son instructions, ask him for a buzzard. And that piece was made right in front of my son. And I wasn't even there. And I really am never money motivated to buy something or decide not to buy something. Money is a means for me and not a goal or nothing. But I think he did this for almost nothing. Beautiful piece.
Well, he needed something to do, right?
Yeah.
But your son at least took a photograph for you of him working on it.
That's a picture my son took. Yeah. Yeah. So he was here, but not courtesy of our show. No. Mm-hmm. I'd love to meet him. I'm still following his work. He's back at Dark Horse now, so I hope we're going to see more Goon, and we need the Goon movie made.
That is very true.
Wow, that's really spectacular. Did you ever see this?
What's that?
Did you ever see the trailer that they made for the Goon movie?
I did not see the trailer, no.
By David Fincher? Wow.
No.
That's beautiful.
I'm making a note. I'll find it.
I would advise everybody watching, find the Goon trailer online. It's beautiful.
By Fincher? Really?
Yeah, if that's the quality of the work that's going into a possible movie, wow, it's going to be an animated feature. It's been around for 10 years, this project. But the trailer is beautiful.
All right, I'm going to look it up after the show is over.
It's great.
The next piece we're going to look at has a little bit of nudity, but it's okay. It's tasteful nudity by the amazing Jim Silky. So let's take a look at that. Look at that. That's,
Jim Silky was our guest, and this was 2013. And if you ever meet him or you speak to him or his great wife, you will find that Jim Silky is James Bond. Really. He has stories for you. Wow. Mike Mignola is a person who talks a lot. And we put him next to Guido at a dinner, and they came off the dinner table. And Mike Mignola said, "This guy will not shut up," about Guido. And this is what Mignola said. The stories that you get from Jim Silky from his working past are amazing. He did work with basically everybody in publishing, with models, with he was an art editor for music companies, and as you may know, he wrote a few novels based on Frank Frazetta's Death Dealer character. He did a lot of work with Dave Stevens on the Betty Page character in the Betty Page of the Queen of the Nile book. The stories Jim Silk has are incredible. Yeah. And he's a very prolific artist by himself, working in beautiful medium. The last thing he did was publish an illustrated novel on the life and times of Mata Hari, a Dutch lady, a spy, which I think was his last published book, published by Steve Morger. And yeah, well, the very tasteful way, just like you say, the tasteful way in which he depicts nudity, combined with the beautiful combination of colored pencils and watercolor, has always appealed to me. This is actually my wife. She's not a comic book art lover, but she always said, this piece you will never be able to sell. You'll never be allowed to sell. But she loves this piece. Yeah. And one of my friends, thank you, Peter, when I posted this piece on CAF, he said, very nice socket.
Yeah, that's why Rich said Betty Page unplugged.
Yeah, unplugged. Yeah, I think beautiful work, Jim Silk. Of course, Jim Silk is, I don't know, I think he's in his 80s by now.
Yeah.
Hopefully he'll be around a lot longer to provide us with beautiful art. And story.
Yeah, I mean, because you're right, he and Morgan are good friends. I've met Jim a few times in San Diego because he would have him at his booth.
Yeah.
I've gotten to see a fair number of his originals, and they are phenomenal.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. This must be surprising to most U.S. Comic book lovers. But this is a French artist called Nicolas Keramidas, who in the early years of the 2000s made a comic book called Luna. Now, this is a good example of what I told you earlier, that sometimes artists get 2 years to finish a book. And he was working together with another great French artist called Didier Crisse. He was the writer, and Keramidas was the penciler artist for this book. And it's a very nice combination of Disney-styled, animation-styled comic books. Luna is an Indian girl who has two sides to her character, a dark side and a light side. And either one of them manifests at certain times. And I think in total 10 books appeared over the course of the years. And the artwork just appealed to me because of the use of color and the very strong animation influenced French work that he did. Another famous French artist in the US is Pierre Allary, who's also in the same stable as Crisse and Keramidas. He did a book called Belladonna, and he worked on the animated Tarzan movie for Disney. And he's featured in my gallery as well. France has a very rich, long, and heavy comic book culture. Here in Europe, France is one of the determining countries when it comes to comic books. They have comic art embedded into their collective culture. And that is something we here in the Netherlands have not, because here comic books are still considered children's literature a little bit. It's changing over the course of the years, but the way the French and the Belgian people approach comic book art is very, very different to the way we have here in the Netherlands, even though we're neighboring countries. And sorry to say, the book Luna no longer appears. It's not published anymore. I think the publisher discontinued it. And ever since, I haven't seen any new work coming from Keramidas of lately, which I think is a shame. But a very, very European hit book, yeah. Published in beautiful. The French have a very good way of publishing limited edition books. These books are the size of artist editions, and many times they carry all kinds of extras like portfolios of art, sketches. They have it's called in French. It's called tirage de tête, which literally means the upper way of publishing. So it's like the top way of publishing a book. And these books are expensive, but you get a lot for your money. And all of the Luna books appeared in editions like these. Yeah. On stateside is Stuart Ang, sells a lot of European sketchbooks and art books. And, yeah, you can get their stuff there.
Sorry, my mic got muted a minute ago. But Chris mentions that Keramidas has recently released some books in France.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, a couple of Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck stories in a very typical style. Yeah, nice work, beautiful work, very distinguished work.
So now, getting back to a little bit more of your roots, I guess. This is a piece from Stout.
Bill Stout, yeah, one of our guests also in Breda, as it says in the piece. Wow, talk about your career. I mean, there's not much that someone like Bill Stout hasn't done. And to meet him, also, again, very approachable, very friendly, very laid back, very open to anything. And when we had him over to our show in Breda for a week, he, by himself, separate from the rest of the group, he picked out a number of goals and just traveled around the country. He wanted to see several cultural outings like museums. He went to the coastline to see the windmills. He went his own little way. And you know, having somebody over with a career like that, with so much work and so much beautiful styles and his variety of work, that was something. Yeah, we're still in good contact. His body of sketchbooks that he publishes himself is vast. I think we're up to 25 by now over the years. And yeah, well, for me, he's in the line of Frazetta, Mignola, Schultz. Definitely. Yeah. Great work.
Yeah, I've always loved Stout's work. I mean, he's a guy you can get a good dinosaur from.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And not feel like you're stepping down.
No,
he puts as much effort into those pieces as his character-driven pieces.
Yeah. And this piece was when we were talking about him coming over, he asked if he could bring his wife, and we said, yeah, sure. It'll cost you nothing, just a few commissions. And he just made 3 beautiful pieces of choice. I chose the dragon. Fons and Guido both make their choices. I don't quite remember what they chose, but they were all in this quality. So it was kind of like an art for travel deal. Mm-hmm. If he made these drawings, we'd pay for his wife tickets. And he said, oh, great.
I'm taking notes.
I'll do that. Yeah.
OAX 2025.
I'll draw you something and I'll come over.
Or will your wife come too?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
It sounds like she likes the arts too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we have 4 more pieces to look at, and they're all by Mark Schultz. So, and I think he's the most collected artist, I think, in your CAF gallery, at least as of today. So let's see. Oh,
this
man.
is well, this is actually the book that's behind me. It's the pencils to that cover. This was yeah, I mean, how much can you cram into a frame? I mean, look at all the dinosaur heads and the detail in the figures. And his pencils, he says he's a noodler because he will not stop working on a piece. He will just abandon the piece because he could go on forever. And the Cenozoic work, of course, is his best known work. Which is gorgeous. If you've ever seen the artist edition to the first, I don't know, 10 comics, I think it is, that's in there, you will see his progression from the Wally Wood influence style to his own style. But his later work, published in Storms at Sea and in the collected various drawings books and carbon books, wow, when he, when he goes out full throttle, wow. And literally, I have a lot, I've seen a lot. I've already seen some pieces which are not shown yet. And it looks like the guy keeps learning and keeps evolving and keeps taking different corners into his work, which I think, how is it possible to make this, to do it this way? And that's what keeps me coming back for more. This is a good example. This is, I think, the second version of the Cenozoic work that was published by Flesk. And this is just a prelim, he says, because the ink piece is even more elaborate.
Marcus would like you to show the book behind you, since it is the cover from that one.
Yeah, sure. It's a smaller volume. It's a small book, and this was colored by Mark's wife, Denise, who's a children's books illustrator, and she does the lettering for the Cenozoic work, and she did some coloring for it. It's a small volume of work. It's only, I don't know, it's slightly larger than a comic book. It's the last published version of Cenozoic. It was first the kitchen sink books. Then there
I was just going to mention that. Yeah, the Dennis Kitchen had some of Mark's art in that recent Heritage Signature auction from last week.
Some of the older work.
The earlier stuff, right? Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. I think the kitchen sink books were the first series of books to appear. Then there were 2 Dark Horse trade paperbacks. And then there is 2 versions published by Flesk. Yeah. It's all the same work, and I think I have it in my collection maybe 5-6 times. But it's still everything. Every book has, like extra sketches or a better way of reproducing or whatever. Yeah. Still interesting. Beautiful work. Adventure comics. Done the way it was done in the newspaper strips in the early 90s and 20s.
Rich mentions it premiered in Kitchen Sink's Death Rattle.
Yeah,
so
correct. Yeah,
I didn't know that
story. Yeah, correct.
Let's see here.
What else did I send you? Wow, yeah, fairly recent piece. He calls this the Abyss, or Into the Abyss, but basically it's Cthulhu. And I think, if I remember correctly, this is the lady is Asha from Storms at Sea, and I know that Mark is working on a sequel to Storms at Sea, so this might be a piece or an idea for the new book. But as we all know, Mark is very slow, and he takes his time on every piece. And this was just for his work. Like I said earlier, for me, it gets harder and harder to find something in his work which he hasn't done before. This is the first time he, as far as I know, has such a clear homage to the Cthulhu mythos.
I can't remember. Yeah.
He's mentioned it a lot, but this is the first piece I see. And here the technique, the light that falls in from above and the pencil work. He works with a very waxy pencil, which is called wolf pencil. And the nuances and all the atmospherics and the structural design that he has is, wow, it's amazing. And then as a small detail, the blood red MS vignette in the lower left corner just pops out. Beautiful piece. It's only a small piece. I think it's about 10 inches high only.
Mm-hmm.
But again, the scan doesn't do it any justice. It's beautiful.
Something you picked up direct from him?
Yeah. From the portfolio straight to me. This one, beautiful multicolored watercolor piece that I think I bought from fellow collector Malcolm Bourne. I don't know the exact pronunciation of the word, but the fish is called coelacanth.
Yes.
If I pronounce it right. If I'm not mistaken, it's the oldest surviving species of animal on the planet. It's a prehistoric animal, and it's still alive. It still exists. That makes this piece interesting. And again, the watercolor, the skulls, the detail in the corral there, and underwater has always been one of my favorite themes. Scenes underwater somehow have a mystery or a certain aura to them. And being I think this was the first full watercolor piece that I got from him. Yeah. Malcolm Bourne is a very prolific collector also, based in the UK, with a very good taste. And every now and then he lets some stuff go, and I think I am one of his most regular customers.
I think Malcolm's one of the few other European collectors that I've spoken to. I think I did an afternoon show with him.
Oh, really?
Yeah, maybe a couple of years ago. Yeah, but yeah, he does. He has a very his more illustration, a little more pinup. I think he leans, but still, he has the same anti-spandex kind of philosophy around the artwork that he collects, and that's wonderful.
It's correct what Rich says in the comments. He has a very beautiful Dave Stevens collection. Yeah. It's not that I'm anti-superhero. I have some, but it's not my preference. There's something for everybody, right?
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
So here's the last piece, and it's fantastic. Of course, another piece by Schultz.
That's literally the showstopper. Yeah. This again, this is also huge. It's even larger than the Wrightson Frankenstein. And a few years ago, Mark just said, you have so much of my work. I think you need an ink piece. And I said, yes, I'd love one, but I can't pay. I can't afford one. And he says, we're going in for the long run. You're going to own a full commission. And I'm still paying him for it. So he asked, what do you want? And I said, well, I can think of only one thing, and that's what got me into the whole pop culture thing, is War of the Worlds. And he had a very specific take on, first of all, on the tripods, which I think is a unique take. And he wanted to feature a Victorian-dressed nurse, because on the battlefield, people get hurt and they need nurses. And he wanted to do something with the clothing. And, when he sent me the preliminaries, which he calls preliminaries, which were also part of the deal, by the way, I was awestruck. And when I saw the ink work, well, when you look at the night skies, when you look at the ink work on the Canon, I don't know if the scan shows it well, but that is something. Yeah. And of course, the overall feel of the piece, the Martians, which crawl from the tripods, which is exactly from the story. The foreground with all the details, the tentacles, the slain people. You know, these commissions that Mark does on this size, museum quality. It's amazing what he can do with a brush. This is brush work. It's crazy.
Wow. I mean, you're quite fortunate, Mark, to
yeah. Well, all thanks to to the other Mark, to Mark S, for making it possible. Because that was indeed true. I have a lot of pencil pieces, some painted pieces, you know, but no real ink project yet. And one of his collection books was coming up, and he also needed stuff to fill the book with. So for him, it was good that he was able to make a nice 2-page splash page. And for me, it was very nice. He made it possible for me to acquire this piece. Wow.
Yeah, you're very fortunate. I love that piece. That is fantastic, and it's great that it ties back to what got you started. In pop culture in the first place.
Yeah, that was my choice, and he just went above and beyond. Yeah.
Well, you've definitely. I mean, so I'm assuming there's probably stuff in your collection that will just never make it to CAF or get scanned just because there's just too many pieces and not enough time, and you don't have a scanner. So well,
the thing is, if I only kind of want to put some stuff up that other people might like, quick sketches, book sketches, as lovely as they might be, surprisingly lovely as they might be in simplicity. I'm not going to put all of them up because it takes a lot of time, and it takes, I want them to look right. So they need to be good scans or whatever. And I wanted to do it right. So I'm not going to put everything up, but I think my collection must be around somewhere between 700 or 800 pieces in total, varying in size and form and whatever. But it's 35 years of collecting so far. Yeah.
Well, I hope you never get, we're want to step back again, right? So you won't delete anything because there's on-off switches on stuff. Just remember that you could just turn it off temporarily.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I never knew.
Yes, there is. You can turn your whole gallery off. So it basically your account will still be out there, but nobody can see anything. They won't.
And you can just turn it back on.
It's all granular, right? You can turn individual pieces off. I forget if you organize things by room, but if you do, that allows you to just turn individual rooms off. If Schultz was all in one gallery room, you could just turn that room off.
If only I knew that back then.
Yes, exactly. Well, unfortunately there's never been a real manual written for how comic art fans works.
And you're going to update the site, I understand, right?
Yeah, we're
going to change it.
Yeah, we've got the app in progress right now.
Right.
Kazra and I have a meeting tomorrow to kind of go over some stuff related to that and other things that we're working on. And once that's done, then we're going to look at the website and how we want to make changes there, because there's definitely some things that we're optimizing on the app that I just think people are just going to want to use it for that reason. It's just going to be, things are going to be a lot quicker. You're going to see more, which I think is what the CAF's biggest problem is. There's too much art posted every day. You can't see everything, but when you can just pull up your phone and start thumbing through the new art and add your own filters and things like that to it, it's going to make, the thing is, I'm seeing more art because I've been using it, and it's a little surprising. And I hate to say it, I literally sometimes before I get out of bed in the morning, I'll wake up and I'm just like, I don't want to get up, but I'll pick up my phone and I'll pull up the app and I'll see what was posted, overnight, because typically the Europeans are posting artwork.
Yeah.
And even same thing, pretty much when I'm going to bed, I'll pull up the phone. Yep. of the last. So it's funny. I really think people are going to see a lot more artwork. And that's a good thing at the end of the day. It means more views on the artwork. Commenting is going to be easier. All of those things. So I think we're going to learn a lot. We're learning a lot from the app, and I think that that's going to help kind of educate us on the things that we might want to change on the website too.
Don't you ever have that sense of overkill, or that that you kind of get jaded by too much?
I don't know. You can never get too
much of a good thing.
I mean, look at coming from the guy who's got 80 Mark Schultz drawings in his cabinet.
Exactly. It's nicely contradictory, right? Yeah.
Right. But no, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, we're all we are all I don't want to use the word fans. We're all art fans. We enjoy looking at artwork, right? We can't always go out to museums. You can't, and there aren't enough shows that focus solely on this medium that we love. And and so yeah, I mean, I think you can never get too much. And the cool thing with the app is, you can scroll by stuff really fast if you don't like it, and then stop, look at the detail really quick. Yeah, it's
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's going to be it's a game changer. Because I've always been kind of anti-app. I never wanted to do it, but now that I've seen it in action, I'm sold. I would never have guessed, but live and learn.
Wow. Great.
So Mark, honestly, this was an absolute pleasure. I'm so glad that you took the time in the evening on a Saturday in the Netherlands to spend with us and talk about your collection and your long time. I mean, you're a 35-year art collector. I mean, and not many people can say that. That's a very, very long time in the hobby, and we're the same age. I'm envious.
But you look a lot better than I do. Because I've been in the summer.
Makeup crew in the other room. They kind of do me up before I come online, and oh yeah.
I've been in the summer, that's why I look like a peach. But the honor is all mine, and I was really honored that you'd have me on the show. And I really want to stretch this. I want to thank you for 20 years of fun and good times, and all the people on Comic Art Fans who I've been in contact with, and my friends on Comic Art Fans. And I want to thank you all for all the fun. And we need to realize that places like these, where we can, put our quaint little habits and preferences, they're worth so much. I mean, if ever you're in the slum or whatever, you're a bit down, you might want to feel to have a look at some nice art, and you can just pop over on CAF and it's right there. And that's worth a lot. It means a lot to a lot of people. I think you really have to appreciate this and applaud yourself for, next to OAX, doing the website this way. Kudos to you.
I appreciate that, Mark. I really do. And I hope we get to meet sometime in person. That would be, I'm ever making it over there. And I was hoping to go see the Marvel exhibit in Basel.
Wow. Yeah.
I don't think but I can't. I tried working that out. I was hoping to even go to Como this year, but I'm not going to be able to do that. So
Malcolm asked me the same thing today, coincidentally. Are you going to Como? And Como, I think, sounds like a great show, but you also need to reserve a big chunk of cash to go there, to be there, and then to buy some pieces.
That's the biggest problem, or the thing working against it. So it's the best thing about it and the worst thing about it.
Exactly. It's both the best and the worst.
It's a trip that I want to make once, though. I mean, and I think every art collector should, if they're able to afford it. Without
and then even for me, it's a plane ride of 2 hours, and I'm there. But it's like it's a money grabber on all sides. Yeah. And you want to be there to buy some art. I mean, you're not going over there just to have a nice lunch. So that's and all the big names, all the people that we want to have in our show, like Frank Cho,
right,
Adam Hughes.
Right, it's a show people would, there's artists there from the U.S. that Europeans aren't going to get to see too often in Europe.
Yeah.
But again, it's just it's tough. But I mean, I commend Steve for putting it on. I mean, it's it's a wonderful show. It's definitely everything he wants out of a show, and he's got the connections to bring in incredible talent.
Yeah. And everybody who's been there is raving about it.
Oh yeah, exactly. That's why I want to go. I gotta go at least one time, but I gotta make a vacation out of it if I'm gonna go there. That's the thing. I'd like to convince my wife to go with me, and maybe we spend an extra week somewhere in Europe and
make it a vacation.
But that adds up more money.
And then come to
doubles in costs.
And then come to the Netherlands.
Right. Oh yeah. No, I did actually. I went to the Netherlands once. I had my son was playing Pokemon in Berlin, and we ended up taking a train through a couple stops in Europe. I did go to Amsterdam because I was always curious what it looked like. It was beautiful. I didn't get to see the tulips or the windmills, unfortunately. So I have to make a trip back.
Yeah. Well, wow, your son plays high-level Pokemon, right?
Yeah, he's even playing today in Orlando. He was in London last weekend. Didn't do as well as he wanted, but he gets paid to travel to these things. So he was in London, last weekend, and he's playing in a big regional tournament in Orlando against like 800 other Pokemon players. So
wow,
he's well known in the Pokemon circles.
That's to you and me that sounds amazing, right? I mean, you play.
I got a free trip to Berlin out of it, because I had to be his. He was under 18, so they all had to pay a parent to go with him. So I got a free trip there. I went to London once with him. Not too bad. But he's 25 now, so now he doesn't need it. We don't get the adult stipend to travel with him. So even more, my wife hasn't traveled with him as often of late, but. But at any rate, I will make it out to Europe. And if you're ever coming to the States,
who knows?
I mean, especially the IX show, I think you would really, really appreciate that show. It's because it
sounds like something. Yeah, absolutely.
And if you've never met Justin in person, I mean that would be your opportunity because he's always there. And a lot of Magic the Gathering artists are there. Bob Eggleton, Greg Hildebrand, is typically there. So and a lot of sculptors too. I mean, it's a really well run and well attended show.
Well, if you run into Justin next, tell him I'm coming.
I will definitely. All right, Mark. Well, again, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. Thank you to everybody who tuned in and hung out with us this afternoon on a Saturday.
Thank you very much.
Sincerely appreciate it. I hope everybody enjoys the rest of your weekend. And when am I doing a show next? My next show is on Monday. I'll be talking with Sarah Jane Bloom from Heritage Auctions. They have a big illustration art auction later this month, and she's the new head of the illustration art department at Heritage. So we're going to do a little interview with her and then look at some of the illustration art pieces that are up for auction, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. I've never met her before, but I've known her name. She's been in the business for a while, so look for that on Monday night.
I'm going to.
All right, fantastic. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Thank you.